we go. And we're going to introduce the wonderful Celia Gadd, 1-star SGL. Yeah.
Hi, everyone. Hi. Thanks, Lisa, very, very much. And thank you for having me on here. So we've got half an hour together. I've got a big list of notes, and Lisa particularly wanted me to talk to you and help you with your recruiting and, sort of team building and generally growing a big walk away group residual income, which is obviously really, I think, what the jewel in the crown, isn't it, for all of us, is trying to build that residual income up so that we've got time and money and freedom and choices. So very brief sort of background. I joined the business in 2009. So I've been in the business 16 years. I know I don't look old enough, do I? Um, but the reason I joined then really was because, having always been self-employed, I used to work with horses full time. So I was an equestrian person before I joined the business, and self-employed, had my daughter, realized that if you don't do the hours, you don't get paid. So I had a financial gap, in my income. And also, I was 41 years old when I joined the business. And to be honest, I was a little bit fed up with mucking out horses. Physically, I was finding that quite hard work. And I'd lost my mojo a little bit for riding dangerous horses as well. Suddenly found myself a mum. And what I used to spend my time doing was getting on all these horses that no one else would ride and sorting them out and competing them and everything else. And, the whole thing was turned on its head. I felt really lost, actually, for the first time in my life. And the reason I tell the story is not because I want you to listen to my story. It's because you will know other people that this resonates with, and it might even resonate with yourself. Because I think when you get to that sort of age, 40s, if life hasn't really delivered you everything that you want, or there's a change in direction, it's very easy to feel a little bit lost. And I think that's how I felt. I'd always been really driven. I've always been really competitive with the horses. I knew exactly what I wanted to do from the age of 6. So to suddenly find myself 41 years old, not really having any plan or any direction was actually really tough. Obviously it was lovely to be a mum, but I didn't feel that I had my own independence. I just didn't feel I had a goal. So when I came across UW, oh my God, it ticked so many boxes for me, and I didn't realize how many at the time. But, the sort of camaraderie, the people, the social side of it, because the equestrian world is very like that, the goals, the targets, the competitive side of it, all of that, really suited me. And I was pretty hungry for it as well. I realized that if you want to change some things, you need to change some things. And I was always prepared to work hard. Hard work has never worried me. In fact, when people say I've worked hard in this business, I often laugh and say, no, a yard of 20 horses was hard work. When I was up at 4:30 in the morning, I didn't get home till 9 o'clock at night. And that was 7 days a week. That was hard work. This is not hard work, but this is relentless. And I think in terms of mindset, this can be hard. So I've just made a few notes here, and I think this is lessons I've learned along the way, which I'm very happy to pass on to you. Personally, I went out there and I really hit it quite hard, even though I was extremely busy doing other things. And I did get to team leader in about 4 months. I don't really know how or what I did particularly, but I just went out and spoke to a lot of people. But I think my biggest first lesson I learned was feeling very disappointed when partners I brought in didn't do what I did. I couldn't understand why people weren't out there getting 8 or 10 customers in their first month. I couldn't understand why people couldn't go and get a couple of people and recruit them. And that was quite tough. And I think we need to know that, because I think one of the things that stops people now is if you have a partner and they bring in a partner fairly early on in their business, and then the person they bring in doesn't do anything or doesn't get going, that can actually stop the person that recruited them. Does that make sense? And I'm sure you've all had evidence of that. So I think the lesson I learned then, Robin, come here, it's my dog. The lesson I learned there was that treat everybody with compassion, and every single team member is super valuable. And I wish I'd known that in the beginning, because be careful how you talk about your team and be careful what you think about it. Because I know people say it now, and I'm sure, I've been guilty of it. People say, how are the team doing? And you can say, oh, well, it'd be great if some of them would do something, or, or they're really slow, or no one's really doing anything. And you've got to be really careful about the language you use, not just for the team, obviously, but for yourself as well. And I found when I started to say, oh, my team are amazing, I've got the best bunch of people I work with, they're all really fantastic and they're flying, guess what? It's just that whole sort of universe and mindset thing. Things started to become more positive. So I think that was a really good lesson. I think mindset and vision. I know Lisa mentioned last night that she said something about that she couldn't recruit in the early days. And I remember saying that to somebody, to one of my uplines early on, or, I seem to be gathering customers all right, but I can't recruit. And they just said, well, of course you can. You're just telling yourself you can't. So switching your language around recruiting is really important. So if you don't feel like you're a great recruiter at the moment, just say, I'm really excited because I'm learning to recruit really well. Do you know what I mean? It's just little shifts in the language and what you say to yourself can make a huge difference. So for me, I was very lucky that I had some really great early influences in the business. And I think back then it was easier to be influenced because we were doing more face-to-face training. I really do feel that nowadays, with everything on Zoom and the lack of sort of connection, it's much harder for partners, new partners in particular, to see that big vision. So when you bring people into the business, it's really important that you get them in front of people like Lisa, like Steph, the nationals, people with big businesses and big vision, because I don't think I'd still be here had I not met people back then in the early days that were earning several £1000s a month in residual income, because that gave me the belief that I could do it as well. And I fear nowadays we talk too much about what you can get next month, like QD star bonuses and customer bonuses and all of that sort of stuff. And we don't talk enough about a 2 to 5 year consistent plan that will bring you in hundreds, if not thousands of pounds a month in residual income. Because if you can sow that seed properly with people at the beginning, they're more likely to go through the pain and the challenges and the no's and all of that. So that's another sort of top tip, really. Make sure with your new partners, you put them in front of somebody, or you're good enough yourself at explaining what the business is really about, which I think is those long-term choices and freedom and, and having that money and time. But nowadays you can earn really good money on the way to that. Whereas when Lisa and I joined, £20 a customer was the most you could earn. So of course we were excited about the residual income because there wasn't much else to be excited about. And I think now there's so many great things and incentives and money and all these, wonderful things they put in place. It's easy not to have that long-term vision in mind. Okay, so that would be a really, really top tip. Things like the power of 5 that we used to show and the old martini presentation. If you don't know what those are, then find out. Someone will tell you, someone will show you. But that was a really good way of just explaining this ever-growing residual income. So my journey was pretty, it was pretty good, really. I mean, I was always doing other things as well in the beginning. I was still teaching riding. I was still an editor of a magazine for many years. But I got going quite well. I got to senior team leader in 2011. And that was just after being made redundant from a job I had that was paying me £45,000 a year and a company car. I was headhunted basically for an equestrian company and I was commercial director. And basically, when I got pregnant with my son, Eric, my second miracle child, they made me redundant and they very soon actually went bust. But, that was a really tough time. And that was when I decided to really pay attention to Utility Warehouse because I knew what I had my hands on. And I thought, I'm not going to let anyone influence my financial future like that again. So, that was a big lesson for me. So I carried on, got to group leader in 2013, got to senior group leader in 2018. And funnily enough, was told the following year that 2018 was one of the most difficult times in the business, that we were churning a lot of customers. It was very flat and nothing was really happening. But nobody told me that. So I just carried on and did what I did and got to senior group leader just before what was Express Day back in 2018. So the reason I'm just telling you that bit is because even though I got to senior group leader in 2018, I don't believe our team really started to grow and learn about the recruiting until 2020. And it's funny, Lisa's already mentioned 2020 because she said that's when this regular team meeting was born. Well, of course, 2020 was lockdown. And what came out of lockdown, wasn't it, within a couple of weeks, was the remote presentation and the fact that we could work remotely. And for me, that was a massive, massive light bulb moment and help because I was a single mum for many years working the business. having to find childcare or taking the kids with me, to all these appointments and rushing around the country, trying to juggle everything. And suddenly there we were at home with the ability to do appointments and show people what we do anywhere around the country. Yes, Lisa, go on. What did you say?
Ask you, probably on behalf of many here, did you struggle at first with the whole techie bit of the remote and using new technology?
Yes.
You did. A bit like me. I actually had to have someone come round and help me who was a QD in my team.
Yes, I mean it definitely wasn't for everybody, and I know a lot of teams stopped practically when lockdown happened because they couldn't go out and do the 20Ks and the neighbour letters and the ways they were doing things. But I think myself and James Swinnerton in my team, who's now senior group leader as well, we just had a conversation one day and said, right, we can't go anywhere, we can't do anything. We've got the kids at home, but everyone in the country can't go anywhere, can't do anything. They've got the kids at home. Why don't we really, really take this to task now and see what we can do? So we went crazy, basically. We got all the team recruiting through social media, a lot of it, reaching out to people, explaining that we had a way you could work from home and make money from home, because it suddenly was a proper home-based business, wasn't it? It wasn't before because you had to get in the car and go and see people. Now this is a home-based business. If you want to stay at home and work the business, you absolutely can. That opened the door to lots more stay-at-home mums, lots of people with illnesses, lots of people that were caring for people. There was just a massive need for the business. And we went from a team of 300 to a team of 900 in 6 months.
Wow.
Through lockdown, which was just nuts. And how we did that, really, we also did some advertising. We found a few job boards where you could put up flexible homework, and of course a lot of people were looking as well, because just before the furlough scheme was like really confirmed, there was a lot of panic, wasn't there? There was a lot of people that were looking for something to do, and we just hit on that and basically capitalized on the fact that everyone was at home. So we grew massively. We learned a lot. We didn't always necessarily recruit the right type of people, because remember, was it £10 then, or it might have been £50 at that time? I can't remember. Was it £10 to join in 2020, or was it still 50? Can't remember.
I think it was 10.
I think it might have been 10, because I think that's why, again, that we had such massive and quick growth, and of course lots of people joining who didn't really get it and didn't understand what they had to do, and a lot of people didn't do anything, but that was fine. But we realized that we had to put systems in place to accelerate that growth. So we still do now a daily information call. So like a little mini Zoom opportunity presentation. We started doing them daily in 2020, and we still, as a team, do them daily now. We did have a little break when we just got fed up with it, thinking about 2023. We stopped for a few months, but we have a lot of people who have got very good at inviting and finding people, to come along to those Zooms. So we would have anything from, even today, we'll have anything from 3 guests to 20 guests, maybe more some days, a day. And that's through LinkedIn, through social media, through a little bit of advertising, through people working their list, treating those as a little bit of a business launch. So if you have a new partner, you can say to them, right, if you've got 5 or 6 people who might be interested in the business, invite them along to the info call, either tomorrow at 1 or Wednesday at 8, giving people a couple of choices of when they can come along. And the info call is 15 minutes. I know, Lisa, you do them anyway, don't you, I think, or something similar sometimes. So it's a really short call. Go through the presentation, ask any questions, and then obviously teaching everybody to be good at following up, because we know that the follow-up is the important bit, isn't it? Once they've been, and asking any other questions. Now, the other thing that we put in place, which we do now as well, is we do group fast starts as well, because what happens is if you get a lot of people joining and you get very new people recruiting, then obviously it's that next step, isn't it? That, they're not confident enough maybe to do a fast start with their new partner. I still think it's better to do them individually. So if you're experienced and you bring a partner in, then I would still take the time to do a one-to-one fast start if you can, because then you can get to know them better and you can go through their list and you can obviously get them making appointments. But we find that because we have them so regularly, if you can catch people quick enough and get them onto that fast start and get them into action, you're much less likely to lose them as well, aren't you? Because they come on and they see some money, they see some results, and they get in the business much quicker. So that definitely helps. And also welcome calls. I can't always do a welcome call to everybody that joins. In fact, what I did, we had just over 100 partners join in March, our team, and I hadn't been particularly good at the welcome calls because for whatever reason, stuff going on at home, dogs being operated on and all sorts of things. But yesterday I did a little welcome video, and then I sent that with a personal message, depending on whether they'd done their training or not done their training or done a fasted or whatever. And I actually did that to about 40 team members yesterday morning in a couple of hours. And some of them came along last night, Lisa, that wouldn't have been there because the little video said, come along tonight, 8 o'clock. We had Lisa on, the team meeting. And, you know, it's just about connecting, isn't it? Whichever way. And obviously a phone call and a proper conversation is better, than a video and a message, but a video and a message was better than nothing. And sometimes you've got to think, how can I reach and have an impact on as many people as I can in whatever time I've got? Does that make sense? So it's just about treating it really like a business, thinking about how you can do that. And then really understanding the numbers game part of it. And again, I don't like saying that. I don't like treating people and saying it's like a numbers game. But ultimately, I'm sure you've all heard of the 80-20 rule. 80% of your income will come from 20% of the team below you. So if you look at your group residual income as it's growing, there will also be a huge amount of team members that are just on a few customers, one customer, two customers, three customers, and for whatever reason they've stopped. But they will provide a big chunk of your group residual income. And there will only be quite a small amount of people that will really go for it and work their way all the way up the levels. And we do whatever we can to change that rule. Of course we do, but ultimately it is the way it is. And people will do what they do when they join the business, depending on their level of desire in the business, their level of desire to join. Do you know what I mean by that? So some people, about 80% again of people that join, their level of desire isn't really that high. They sort of think they might want to earn a little bit more money. They don't really know how. They're sort of okay with giving it a go. But they're not really fully invested in changing their lives because a lot of that's belief, isn't it? They don't actually think they can, or they don't know how to. So depending on their level of desire when they join, and depending on how coachable they are when they join, will really determine their early success. But the thing to remember is that level of desire can change at any time. So you can have people that come in and they're super hungry and they really want it and they're really going to go for it. And then actually they burn out a bit and they decide that it's not really worth the effort. You'll have other people that will come in and they are just giving it a go. But once they immerse themselves in the business and they meet people and they see what's possible, I mean, Lisa, perhaps you're an example of that, really, from what your story last night, that you sort of know it's possible, but you've got lots of other things going on. And then suddenly you make the decision to make it a priority and to really work the business well. The point is, every person in any of your teams could be on any of those levels at any time. And you don't know that unless you keep in touch with them and keep the conversations going and try and keep the door open and keep exposing them to things that might spark them into action or might help them build their confidence and belief. Obviously, events is absolutely key to that. It really is. So hopefully you're all going to be at Power Up. Yes, Lisa, go on, please.
Can I ask you, when was your first event and did it have a big impact on you?
100% yes. Now I'm trying to remember because I know you said last night I joined in January 2009. I don't think Express Day was in the spring then, but it may have been.
No, it was still in the autumn. Yeah.
Was it? Yeah. So, but I can definitely remember going to Mad. And I think maybe Mad was my first big event. And then I think Express Day started in the spring in 2010. I think I might be right to say that. So, so Mad would have been my first event in September. But up until that point, joining in January, what I did was I did go to every single classroom training that was available. I mean, I went to getting started training. You'll know because you saw me at lots of, every single month that whole year. So I did getting started about 10 times.
Can I
We
ask
used
you why you repeated that?
because I felt I got such a great motivation and inspiration from the trainers. So the trainers really helped keep me on track. And it used to be getting started and followed by the op, didn't it? Or the cop in the evening. I would also, if I recruited somebody, I would go with them to the getting started as well. They stopped that after a while, and I thought that was really bad because it was a great opportunity to be in the room next to your new partner, building rapport, helping them with their list, helping them with the presentation. And that really cemented relationships, I felt. Another thing I did that year, Jimmy Chapman was doing his recruiting masterclasses, driving all around the country. And I was at every single one. He used to laugh at me stalking him because I'd be, at the front at every one because I just thought he was brilliant, and a lot of the, my recruiting that I've trained the team would come from those recruiting masterclasses. It's, getting the mobile number off the van. I know we've got to be careful with GDPR these days, but, just texting people, would you be open to another income stream? All that sort of language and looking for partners all the time, always prioritizing recruiting. So I've
Yeah.
done that from day one pretty much, is that I've led with the business because I've got 300 personal customers, but they're just 300 people that didn't say yes to the to the business opportunity. Of course, now actually you can have a partner that becomes a customer, can't you? And they are your personal customer. But for many years, if they joined as a team member, you lost them as a personal customer. So I would have signed up a lot more than 300 customers. It's just a lot of them then became team. So yes, I think going to trainings, as many as I could. And there was still before MAD, I think like Clive and Di did a sort of summer event, maybe at a hotel that I'd been to. Yeah, I was just all around the country. Anything I could get to, I was like a sponge. I just wanted to be there and to learn. And
Celia,
that's what we miss out on.
can I support you on that? Because that was the top tip I got from Steve Critchley, Wes, Robin. Go to, I mean, you can't go to these now, but they are actually available all the time virtually. And I would advocate, I still actually do, perhaps you do, Celia. I still do the ones like getting to team leader because I want to know what my team are getting.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
can't possibly vouch and say this is great if I've not done it myself. And you know that the daft thing is, and I'm sure you share this, don't we always still learn something new?
Absolutely. I mean, I do, so I'm also running, I expect you know about this because I know Lisa did a couple of them, but there's the UW Live and Kicking trainings. So if you go onto Facebook and search for UW Live and Kicking, if you're not already in that group, you can go to classroom trainings. There are classroom trainings going on around the country with various GLs and SGLs running them. And the feedback I've had, from people that have been in the room at those is absolutely brilliant. And the kickoffs, we did our own little kickoff well, it was about 100 people at a Somerset kickoff that we did this year. So trying to get your new team into a room, if you can, of partners is really, really important because I think the reason it's harder to get people to power up now, and I'll be honest, it is harder. I've got less team going to power up at the end of April than I had going to Express Day before lockdown.
Yeah.
Now that's and my team is 3 times the size. And I think that's safe to say most people are finding the same thing. And I just think since lockdown, people got a bit lazy, a bit introverted, and because we haven't got the classroom training where you meet people and you want to hang out with them and then go and see them at the event, you're taking people from a virtual world in some cases and trying to put them in a room with 5,000 people. And it can seem a bit daunting. So if you can just get your team to the buzz, or to a live and kicking training, or just have your own team meetings if you've got a little local team and just get people together, I think we're going to have to go back to that a little bit if we really want to cement the business. Yes, Lisa.
And Celia, would you agree? If at all they can go to Power Up, I personally would advocate they go to the Sunday one because it's a compact morning of what's happened on Saturday. But I
Yeah,
think the main thing is the afternoon offers about 5 different trainings, live trainings by the very best in the business.
yeah,
Oh, and
100%.
it
And I
and
think
it's
that's
10 quid cheaper.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. No, absolutely. If you could have the choice of the day, definitely, I would recommend Sunday. I mean, Saturday's going to be great. That every it will always be super. But yes, well, I think we're nearly at the half an hour up. So I hope that's been useful. I know I've thrown loads and loads of stuff at you there and talked at you. If anyone's got a quick question, we've got a few minutes. So if anyone has got a question they would like to ask about anything,
Do
please feel free.
unmute yourself. Do ask. Come on, you've got a lady here that is absolutely amazing. Please do ask her. Anybody would want to ask a question?
Yes, go on,
Yeah, I
Lorraine.
do.
Oh, sorry, Lorraine first and then Michelle. Is that all right? Lorraine, go for it.
I beg your pardon?
Said about texting to companies, would you be open to another income stream? Would you only put that, or would you embellish it a bit?
Well, I might just say something like, "Hi, Mark. I know you're a local plumber. We have other plumbers doing really well in the business that I run. Would you be open to, something really short and sweet? Because they're
Yeah.
either going to say yes or no, aren't they? If they say yes,
Yeah.
then obviously you've got choices then about whether maybe to send them a UW story or invite them to an info call or just say, can we have a chat on the phone or do you want to meet for a coffee? But yeah, just short and sweet. Particularly businesses that we could potentially be referral partners with, that are going into homes that have a lot of homeowner customers, then you've just got to keep your mind open to opportunity with our business because there are lots of people out there that it's very, very worthwhile speaking to. But I would say in the beginning, just keep it quite short and sweet. Yeah,
Yeah, and would you
absolutely.
keep it like to texts or mix it up with some
Yeah,
notes or
officially speaking now, I don't think you're supposed to text people. I think you're supposed to call them. Well, I think you can text with that sort of text, but you're not allowed to send them any information without their permission. So I think you could say, are you open to another business? And then if they said yes, then send them information. Don't send information before you've got their permission. That was just
Thank
a
you.
quick one there.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lorraine. Michelle, what did you want to ask?
Just two questions. Listening to your call last evening, I've picked up, obviously, I've been with Lisa a short time, that you focus more on the recruiting side as opposed to the customer side. Obviously, the customer could follow as a result of the recruiting. I would be interested to know on social media, how do you go about that recruiting?
Tell your story. Okay, so tell your story about why you've joined the business and how it's helping you or what you're excited about. Tell other people's stories. Share stories about your team and how the business has helped them or what success they've had. In terms of direct messaging, I've had great success in using third party. So, for example, if I was going to message you, Michelle, we were friends, let's say, on Facebook, and you lived in Swindon, let's just say for argument's sake, I might send you a message and say, hey, Michelle, I hope you're doing really well. I haven't spoken to you for a while. Just wanted to let you know that I'm looking for some key team members in your area in Swindon. I'm looking to set up a team for my home-based business in Swindon. Do you know anyone at all who you think might be open to some extra income and who would like to work from home or something along those lines? Just something very chatty, very friendly. But that, do you know anybody, rather than would you like to, is a much softer approach. It's not as spammy, it's not as salesy. And most people will come back, they'll either ignore you, which is fine, or they'll come back and say, no, I don't, thanks. Or they'll come back and say, yes, I do know of someone. Or they'll say, oh, actually, I might be interested. What's it all about? If I had £1 for every time you ask in the third party, but someone comes back and says, actually, what is it? That sounds intriguing. That might be for me. So that it's being quite specific. I'm looking for some key team members. When you're recruiting online, think about who your ideal partner would be and talk to them in your messaging. So I like working with mums because I like working between the school run because I've still got Eric, he's 13, I still have to do school runs with him. I don't particularly like working in the evenings now. I do, but it's not my favorite time of day. I'm very, very proactive in the morning. I like to, speak to people and work in the morning. So if I'm supporting partners that are working the same hours as me, that suits me. So I'm more likely probably to go and recruit them than I am to look for professional people that are working 9 to 5 that are going to want to be supported in the evening. That's just a personal thing, but you can think about who do you want to work with? And then go and find those people. So for me, I would go into mums groups. I would talk about the flexibility, about the way that you can still work around the children. You can go to the sports day, you can do all the sports stuff and all of that. And that's why we've got quite a high number of mums in the business. That's just the way it is. But you know, I'm open to working with anybody, of course. The same with if you're going to, Lorraine, look at businesses, you know, go to one sector at a time. Because if you go to a particular sector and it works, then you can genuinely say we've got other plumbers in the business that are doing really well, you know, and you can start to sort of build that side of your team, if you like. So be specific. I think the worst thing about utility warehouse is anyone can do it, because anyone can do it. It makes us all very sort of too open in our messaging and who we're looking for. So try and nail it down a little bit. Have a little bit of a niche yourself, because other people will still come to you. And if you stay in long enough and you keep your messaging and your social media about lifestyle and positivity and all the things it's done. Now, obviously, I've been in 16 years, so I can do that now, but I've done that all the way through. And most of the people that didn't join me in the beginning, for whatever reason, all those no's, have over the years, a lot of them have just come back to me and said, actually, can I have another look at it now? Because they've seen what I'm doing. Right, so great question. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Lorraine. And thank you, Lisa. I think we're time's up.
Absolutely wonderful. And I think a round of applause, Celia. You've been absolutely amazing. And I will be recording this and I'll send it to you too.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you. Yeah. Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. Have a lovely
Thank you,
evening.
Phil. Thank you,
Take
Lorraine.
care. Cheers. Bye.
Bye.